So next tab over is reports. Essentially, at the end of the day, Utelogy is a big database, is sort of how I preface this. There is, we capture a lot of data about a lot of things. So reports is your opportunity to pull that system out and create your own data tables with the information you want to see. There are 3 cardinal types of reports: alert, asset, and room, and they kind of do what they say on the tin. So alerts looking at all of the alerts that we've ever had in the system and actually breaking that down. We can also see assets, so we can pull asset information as well as any of the data that we capture we can pull into a report, and I've got an example I can show you of that. And then we've also got room data, so if you want to capture things like room usage, things like that, current status, we can show that information on a room report. So the one we're looking at here is alerts, and you can see currently I've got this filtered by warning. So again, we can actually see things like when our displays have been switched off, because that's been a warning we've had. We've also got other alerts down here. So for example, our self-healing alerts, when things have actually been resolved through those self-healing scenarios, we can see the log of when that's happened. And again, you can see that lots happened on Friday. Asset, I mentioned we can sort of pull any metric. So here's an example I was using earlier to help a customer. We were talking about standards of rooms, and they told me that every single one of their devices was connected to HDMI port 1 on the display. We went through and pulled a report and showed them that around 50% of them weren't. So what they thought was a standard turned out not to be. So that's the kind of information we can capture in an asset report, as well as more specific things, for example, like firmware version, serial number that we get of devices. So we can actually pull information, and this information is automatically populated from those device APIs. So as soon as we do that configuration I showed you earlier by filling in an IP, username and password, it gathers all of this information automatically. Okay. The next tab over is going to be rooms. And this is actually where we can start to dive into a specific room and actually even get all the way down to controlling the devices in that space as a technician. So firstly, when we come to this screen, we can still break this down by our location tree. So I could just look at the rooms that are in my particular office that I'm looking at or supporting today. And again, I'm going to come in and we're actually going to look at the boardroom that we've got in here. So first coming into this, the first thing that I see when I come into this is the status overview of all of the assets in that space. So you can see currently I've got, I don't know how many devices this is, 10 devices in this space. I can see they're all connected. I can see they're all powered on. I can see all but one have alerts. And again, that's that alert we looked at earlier with that Poly X30 touch panel not being connected. So again, we can see exactly where that alert is coming from in the system. We can also change this view depending on what we're looking to do. So for example, we can pull up asset view where we can see straight away an overview of the serial numbers. And if we wanted to, and again, an action for me is I need to go through and fill these in, where we can actually have asset tracking numbers that relate to, the stickers that are on the back of the devices. So we can actually log that in this system. Configuration more relates to maybe a support, what the configuration is of that system, including versions that you're using of Utelogy. And then network, this is a really useful tool when you're actually onboarding a new client. We can actually show them exactly how we're going to communicate with all of those devices, what IP addresses we're going to use, what protocols and ports. So we can send this straight off to your network team, and straight away they can open up the requirements to actually make this function, because it's all captured in our system. Okay. Coming a bit further down, we can see the alerts in the system. So again, just if we had more alerts on this tenant, we would see just the alerts that relate to this particular room. And then we can also see room level metrics as the next tab down. So for example, this is information that we capture about that room. So for example, how many capacity the seats have. We can see, does it have audio teleconference functionality or video teleconference? Is it currently in a call or is it occupied? And even things like we can fill in what type of room kind it is, because that enables us to do things like say which room kind actually causes us the most pain, not necessarily the individual manufacturers. Is it the huddle spaces where people go in and move things around because they don't touch things in the formal boardrooms? That's the kind of information we can capture and report on as well.